Welcome again to another episode of Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast. Chris Palmer with Piranha Training, mental performance coach for hockey athletes throughout North America and Europe. Jeff Lerg, goalie mentors, former professional hockey player. Every week we come to you with things that we think are actionable and usable, and what better subject to talk about than what just transpired. This past week, we saw the end of the Stanley Cup run. Absolutely amazing, and amazing for so many reasons, and such a perfect poster child for what we talk about all the time. The reason we have a Hockey Mentality podcast is because mentality is the thing that makes the difference. We all want to be good. We all have talent. But in the end, the talent consolidates higher and higher. And at that point, the difference is who can stay dialed in the most and do their job despite all the distractions. There's so many we want to talk about today, but Jeff, do you want to start us out with anything that you think is really, really super impactful that you saw that just defines this mentality thing in this game?
Yeah, I do, Chris. Before we get going, though, for those watching on our YouTube channel, you'll see that we have a different backdrop today. We're at Munn Ice Arena on the Michigan State University campus. So as many of our listeners know, I run a big goalie school called Future Pro USA Goalie School. It's one of our goalie mentors brands. And our hosts at Michigan State have been nice enough to allow us to use their facilities this week for camp, and then we're in their video room right now recording. So that's a little background for those watching. But yeah, the Stanley Cup playoffs has just concluded. We thought it'd be a timely episode to talk about all of the emotional ups and downs that took place, or at least some of the key points that we were able to view. And again, it's common knowledge for the hockey personnel to know that there's no playoffs like it. There's no championship like it. What other sport do you have the 4 rounds of 7 games with the highest of high emotional state? Of course, basketball has a similar format, but there's nowhere close to the team culture, the emotions, the players playing through injury. Like, it's the best drama that unfolds year after year. For me personally, I played hockey my whole life, so I don't watch a ton of hockey during the fall-winter season, during the regular season, but I watch every night in playoffs because it is a different game. It is grown men putting their lives on the line. They're set. All that time and energy put in during the course of the regular season is just amped up to a whole nother level. Guys are willing to block shots with any part of their body. They're finishing every check. It always comes out after playoffs how many injuries are played through, because all players want to do is win that Stanley Cup. They don't care if they got a tendon torn, a ligament torn, teeth coming out, broken shoulder, doesn't matter. They want to just sacrifice and do anything they possibly can to get back in the lineup.
So I think what's so amazing about this, if you look at the arc of this whole thing, go back to last year and the F-bomb video with McDavid, right? Like in the middle of that run in the same area, you've got him just losing his mind, talking about, hey, we just got to find a way to bring it. This is not enough, not enough, not enough. F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. He didn't even notice or care that the media was all over him. And it was so great to kind of pull back the curtain and see the real thing. And all of that, you know, they were doing everything they could to make it work this time. You know that the guy who's nicknamed McJesus has so much on him, and as many accolades as he has, getting a Stanley Cup run and winning it, that's the thing that's missing, right? It's really kind of the only thing that's missing. So we know they put everything they could into this, and I couldn't believe this one game. It was just incredible. It's a 2-game thing. It's one game where these guys are so physical, they're just losing their minds. Game 3, just losing their minds. It became this thing that was just so out of control. I couldn't believe I was watching it. I mean, it turned into a 6-1 game out of this just mayhem. Nobody could keep their crap together. And I get it, because it's so important to them, right? They worked their whole lives for this. They knew they almost had it last season, and they were just so out of control, so not dialed in. And then amazingly, in the next game, they're behind 3-1 in the first period. You think, oh my God, it's going to fall apart again. And then they go from 3-1 behind to winning the game. It's like they just decided to execute what they know and not get distracted by mindless fighting, but just important physicality. It was beautiful. It's this incredible arc, and I hope it shows people who are listening, this is the story of your kid in hockey. This is the story of people you love in hockey. This is the story of you in hockey. You are constantly you against you in your brain. Can I find a way to do the job I've been trained to do, or am I going to be distracted by other stuff?
And you mentioned it. Edmonton was a team who led the playoffs in the most comeback wins. The reason I picked Edmonton before the playoffs to win it. I picked them last year. They came up short. They went to the Stanley Cup final in Game 7. I picked them solely because they have McDavid. He's the best player in the world. If you ask any NHL head coach, it'll be unanimous. But they have the oldest lineup. So they had the oldest team going into playoffs. They had the most experience in playoffs. So the way you build your mental toughness and the fortitude to keep believing is through experience. So they had this lineup not only full of superstar talent, but also experience that's been there. And we can't say done that yet because two of the best players in the world, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, hadn't won yet. So again, I did not watch Edmonton play more than 2 or 3 times all year, but I went solely on mentality. They had two of the best players who were just chasing down the ultimate prize. They have Corey Perry, who's a 40-year-old in what more than likely would have been his last playoff run. We'll see where the offseason goes. This Corey Perry's been to the Stanley Cup final 5 out of 6 years now. He's been to the final 5 out of 6 years. He's lost every single one of them. So coming up to this playoff run, 4 out of 5 years, he's made the Stanley Cup final. No other player's done that in NHL history. He's come up short every single time. The last championship that he won was 18 years ago in 2007, I believe. So, and then just as the storybook unfolded with Florida winning, the first thing I took notice of was Florida scored an open netter in Game 6 to put the game out of reach. It was like 6.5 minutes left. It was an early pulled goalie. Corey Perry's the one who the puck comes back to after it goes in the open net, just rips a slap shot back into the open net, and you could just see the defeat and just the emotional status. I almost wanted to cry for the guy because you know that he's just playing to chase that ultimate prize, and I can't even put myself in that position. 4 out of 5 years sacrificing your life, your family, just to keep playing and keep pursuing it. And you know all you want to do is go out on top, and then that's what happened. Like I felt for the guy. I never met him, but that was the first thing I noticed. Just all those great moments throughout playoffs, the playoff runs year after year, they really were just obsolete now. They didn't mean anything because they came up short again.
What a great lesson for everybody. Like whether you're a player or you're supporting a player, you can give everything and still not get what you want. It's a lesson of life. It's a huge lesson. And the sooner you make peace with that, then at least you know that your best chance to get what you want is everything you have. So it was an amazing run for him. I thought it was great. I'd love to change gears a little bit and talk about Marchand. I think Marchand's a great story. Marchand, such a figure in Boston hockey, such a figure. And this amazing love-hate fan base and just this great character. One of the cool stories about him, I guess, early on, he was a guy who wasn't all that big, wasn't all that really capable, but there's the story that I guess there was a fight one time. He was protecting a family member who was playing with him. And when he was fighting, all of a sudden it was like, man, I'm onto something here. This is my differentiating point. So he became this fly in the ointment, this irritating guy. And he even says in the article, he's like, you wouldn't know my name if I didn't become that guy. But I saw this other guy this time, this guy who left Boston. It appears from public information, that would be private information. From public information, it was a contract thing. He just couldn't make the numbers work. So he leaves after having this great fan base, comes down, sure gets plenty of hate from Boston, comes into this area that's fully formed, and not only finds a way to assimilate into the group, but he becomes this guy who's just so effective. And he's so effective because it's absolutely this dialed and driven thing. Everything he has, for everything he wants, drive, drive, drive. I couldn't believe how much it was chip, 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 grind, grind, grind in this game, doing the crazy physical things for a 38-year-old guy. He's a monster. And love him or hate him, man, is he the epitome of mental toughness and mentally being dialed in. It was amazing to watch.
Yeah, what other sport, if you have a nickname, the Rat, it's a good thing. And that's him. He just gets under people's skin, and he plays this part to a T. He's obviously extremely talented, but he's so good at the role he plays. And obviously he gets over to Florida. They kind of just load that team up. You know, as you watch the playoffs and listen to knowledgeable people around the game, you start to hear about how complete that team was and how they just mentally defeated all their opponents. People would try different things. They would, kind of maybe get a glimpse of success and try to start to believe. And Florida just kind of suffocated them. No one could get really offensive chances on a consistent basis. The team was so complete. They had an excellent, experienced coach. And they just 4 rounds in a row just suck the life out of their opponents. And you could see that in the final with Edmonton. Like they'd start to try to kind of claw back into the series or claw back into a game, and then Florida would just take their life away. Yeah, and then eventually, at all levels of play, that starts to lead to undisciplined penalties and emotion taking over, and that's why Florida really just sucked the life out of everyone. That's why they were the best team all the way through. I'm sure as Edmonton Oilers were competing, they kind of probably felt that they were the best team, that Florida was a better team. They trailed virtually the whole series. They never could get that momentum in a game. It's obviously one of the ways you win championships. You control the momentum swings, and Florida did that better than anyone. Most of the time they got out to a lead, and they just held on to it. They had obviously a highly experienced, highly talented Vezina-winning goaltender in Sergei Bobrovsky, which we like to believe with Goalie Nation that goaltenders win championships. Obviously team defense and coaching and everything goes in as a part of it. But whenever there was a little crack in the armor, Bobrovsky was there making huge saves, and they just took the life out of him. And the emotional status, you could see the swings. And even though I picked Edmonton, you could watch it unfold. You knew as a fan, a hockey fan, that Florida was the better team. They deserved the win. And then they executed at the highest level.
Well, it's interesting because if you look at Florida in the game that was, that Edmonton was down, 3-0 in the first period, you would think Florida's got it made, right? Isn't it fascinating that Florida somehow goes from that kind of lead into losing the game? It's incredible. So as great as Florida was, it isn't like they were great all the time. There's still times where they lost connection. And when you look at that game that was 3-0 in the first period, I mean, oh my gosh, 3-0, like how it looks like everything's great. And I'd love to know if there wasn't some, hey, we got this thing, we're good. Some pulling the foot off the gas even a little bit. I'd love to know your impression of that. But what's so crazy is that it doesn't matter. We're all humans. We've got this thing in us that sometimes it's just easy to go into being all in or not all in based on our circumstances. It's an amazing thing trying to figure that out all the time.
Well, the reason they came back is because they have two of the best players in the world. And if you watch that playoff series in particular, Edmonton and Florida in the final, it was the two best teams. They generated more grade A chances, high quality chances than any hockey game I've seen. And those goalies had to be exceptional to win a game. And in that game in particular, Bobrovsky, I think, was still exceptional. And they just had that tremendous amount of offensive talent to come back. And that's the momentum swings that occur. So they got the one by him, but Florida didn't allow that to happen again. And the other thing, speaking of goaltending, that a very intriguing storyline as the playoffs unfolded was the Edmonton Oilers goalie situation. Of course, it's been blasted all over social media. If you watch any of the playoffs throughout, it was a consistent theme. The Stuart Skinner, the starter, the higher paid of the two, played over 60% of the minutes throughout the course of the regular season. And then Calvin Pickard, a career backup, never been in the limelight, never had a playoff start in the NHL level. I think he's been a pro for 10 to 12 years or maybe even more. He's been around a long, long time. I've had the opportunity to actually train him in the summer, one summer when he was playing for the Red Wings. I had the opportunity to train the Red Wing goalies, and he was their third guy. He was an American League guy, third string with the Red Wings. So great guy, awesome person. And as you watched or listened to the storylines, you would hear he was just the ultimate teammate, the ultimate backup goalie. Not selfish at all. Whatever the team needed him to do, he would do. But in this instance, the team needed him to go in and win games. And this kind of no-name, quote-unquote, in the NHL playoff level, comes in and starts his playoff career 7-0. So by the end of the playoffs, Stuart Skinner ends up 7-7, wins-loss record. Calvin Pickard ends up 7-1. Became a little bit of a controversy, who to play, when to play. Really, he got on a roll when Skinner was pulled early in the first round, and then they put Pickard in. He just got on a roll. He won his 6th straight start. So really intriguing to watch because even the announcers watching, like they were trying to do a highlight package on him, one of them kind of forgot his name. He was just that unknown. He had to kind of call him like the Edmonton goalie. He couldn't even remember his name top of his head. So, but at the end of the series, something I've never seen before in all my years of hockey and playing, those two, Skinner and Pickard, are both on a knee watching Florida celebrate. Stuart Skinner was the starter. He obviously was just manning the crease that he played in throughout the course of the game. But Pickard, the ultimate teammate, comes over, kind of consoles him, and has a knee right next to him. Just what an unbelievable teammate. And you could see that relationship unfold if you ever watch some of the highlights back you'll see each of those guys supporting one another, kind of giving the hug after the win, or when one guy gets pulled and the other has to go in, both having a sincere acknowledgement for the other's efforts and feelings. So really the ultimate way that you want to operate as a goalie and as a human in the game was be prepared when it's your time to be called, but when it's not your time, be the absolute best teammate possible.
That's great. This just brings together so many things, and I'm so glad that people had a chance to see this, and the people watching now, just as a way to wrap up, please know you have so much power. You have so much power in your life. You have so much power as a parent helping a kid, or a spouse helping somebody you love, or being the player himself or herself trying to figure it out. These guys have shown you that in the end, there's a human being trying to be as close to perfect as possible, trying to give everything they have for everything they want. It's so hard to do that. And really the answer we talk about all the time is to be dialed and be driven towards your goals. But it's so hard. It's hard for the best guys in the world. And even when you give everything, you still might not make it. But even in that, you talk about the two guys in the crease. That picture is amazing. Tell me they're not going to remember that moment. They lost. But in that moment, they lost together, given everything they had. It's amazing. I know it's about winning, but it's about the whole experience. And I hope the people listening hear that, because that's the truth. That's why this game's so amazing. Sometimes you can give everything you have and it doesn't work out. But even in that, there's beauty.
And lastly, with sports, one of the best phrases that a coach ever told our team was, only one team gets the opportunity to win their last game. And that's the feeling. That's the nature of sports. There's one champion. Everyone else can give their all, give all the blood, sweat, and tears along the way. But that's why when you see players celebrate, the Florida Panthers couldn't even contain themselves the last 5 or 6 minutes. They were jumping up and down like little kids on the bench as the clock was winding down for 5 or 6 minutes of real play, because they just couldn't wait to let that energy release and celebrate what seems to be impossible task at times of winning the Stanley Cup. So for me, that's why I watch NHL hockey every night. That's why I'm involved in the game. There's nothing else like it. It's all about that emotional state of putting everything you got for everything you have, to take your phrase, Chris, and learning how to stay dialed and stay driven to accomplish your goal. And that's the only way to accomplish success. So that'll wrap up our episode today. Thanks again for listening. And as a reminder, follow us on all social platforms and leave any reviews and subscribes, as they're always appreciated.
Lerg! One of the best saves you will ever see, keeps this game alive.
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven.